we're going to move forward with this House Bill 33. So the chair lays out House Bill 33 and recognizes Representative McLaughlin to explain the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for laying out House Bill 33, otherwise known as the Uvalde Strong Act. One thing I want to be clear with before I finish reading this statement, in no way, shape, or form is this bill transferring TDMs to a oversight of law enforcement in any shape or form. TDM is only going to be included in this bill is for helping develop policy and distributing that policy as they're the emergency management coordinators throughout the state. So I just wanted to be clear. There was some question that we were trying to put TDM in a position of law enforcement, and we're not trying to do that. As mayor of Uvalde, I witnessed the botched response to the tragic shooting at Robb Elementary on May the 24th, 2022. Arriving at the scene within the first 10 minutes, I was one of the first to witness the chaos that unfolded. Law enforcement hesitated, communication broke down, and innocent children and teachers were left defenseless. For 1 hour and 14 minutes, the shooter remained inside a classroom full of students, while nearly 400 officers from just about every law enforcement agency stood outside unsure how to act. Tragically, students and teachers died waiting to be rescued. The House Investigative Committee's report from that day confirmed what I saw firsthand. Chaos, unpreparedness, and an utter failure of leadership. I witnessed the confusion, the delay, and the tragic cost of hesitation when every second counted. That is why I'm here today bringing forward House Bill 33. We must overhaul our approach to school safety and active shooter situations. We cannot afford to repeat the catastrophic mistakes made during the response at Robb Elementary. Building upon the active shooter response improvements made by House Bill 3 during the 88th legislature, House Bill 33 codifies common active shooter response practices to establish a statewide emergency response protocol for all law enforcement and public information officers, eliminating any confusion across jurisdictions. The Texas Department of Emergency Management will develop comprehensive guidelines that outline recommended tactics and equipment, establish clear chains of command, create protocols for public communication, and standardized procedures for incidents, investigation, and reporting. With conflicting training and policies, law enforcement agencies don't always coordinate at Robb Elementary. That outright failed. It is critical that we have all responding agencies come together to ensure coordination and readiness. Under this bill, local governments will be required to participate in annual multi-agency training exercises, biannual roundtable meetings with law enforcement to ensure a unified response during an active shooter incident or any other emergency. House Bill 33 would build upon current school safety measures by implementing security guidelines reviewed by TDM, DPS, and the Texas School Safety Center. Following these guidelines, school districts will be required to adopt the statewide active shooter response plan and maintain direct law enforcement communication systems. This bill ensures that all responders are on the same page and ready to act from the start. The safety of our children shouldn't be a question of who's in charge. It should be about how we all step up together. We owe it to the families in Uvalde and to every community in Texas to ensure that when tragedy strikes, we get it right. House Bill 33 ensures that we do. We're currently working on a committee sub that will incorporate suggested edits from the agencies that we have spoken to. These edits are minor and do not change the concept of the bill, but will allow agencies to work together in a more effective way than what we have already laid out. I am open to address any questions, and I yield the right to close.
right, members, are there any questions for Representative McLaughlin? If not, thank you, Representative, and we'll reserve your right to close. This is your first bill, too, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, congratulations.
Wait till you get to the floor, buddy.
All right, Chair now calls Ian, do what? You want to go Colonel Martin? Ah, sorry. Chair calls Colonel Freeman Martin, the Director of DPS. Thank you for being here, Colonel. We show you Richard as Freeman Martin, testifying on behalf of the Texas Department of Public Safety, and you're testifying neutral, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Chairman, Vice Chair, members, Mayor, Freeman Martin with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Of course, we're neutral on the bill. Here's a resource witness to answer any of your questions. We've met at length with the mayor about some suggestions to make the bill better. We've worked with the mayor very closely since May 24th of 2022, and we believe in his intent behind this bill and what he's trying to accomplish. We had some suggestions for improvement, some confliction with House Bill 3 that was previously passed, and some alert training that was passed to address issues of Robb Elementary. Of course, there's an ongoing prosecution we've been under an order from the district attorney not to release certain reports and information, so that still continues on 3 years later. I think some of that is meant to be addressed in this bill also with the required reports within 30 days. Some of it is, I think you're going to hear from police chiefs and sheriffs. Some of this is a redundant type training, and some of it, Texas is just so big and so different from the rural counties to the urban areas, and without delineating some of the language of a population over 350,000 as House Bill 3 does, you get into a situation where if it's mandated training with all partners within a county the size of Harris County, it was a statement was made that you'd have to hold the meeting at NRG Stadium because there would be so many people involved in that, versus some counties where you might have 3 people attending the meeting. And so we work with the mayor on some suggested edits to the bill, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Members, are there any questions for the Colonel? Chair recognizes Representative Louderback.
Colonel, good to see you. Appreciate what you do. But Representative McLaughlin has filed this bill. It's got some duplication and different things that we're going to work through. He's been more than gracious to agree to work with all those things and come to a very acceptable bill where we're spending our time in law enforcement training appropriately and establishing the kind of communication that I think we all want in this state and all working towards. So is that your understanding?
Yes, sir. And there have been so many improvements made just in the last couple of sessions. And alert, of course, is the gold standard, the national standard that we train by, and making that mandatory in that 16 hours and going through that training, and then building in some of the incident command structure in that is invaluable. And then requiring police chiefs and sheriffs to have that 31-111 additional training on command staff has been a huge improvement.
So we'll try to take this bill and increase communication and increase our level of efficiency. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Colonel Freeman. My question is really about what you had stated initially in your statement about having some concerns about the bill. Were those simply just duplications, or are there other concerns?
There were several. Some of the who's doing the training,
Okay.
and some of it's developing plans to train law enforcement. I think that's well established following Columbine, and then the improvements that have been made. I would hate to see somebody come up with training, anything other than stopping the killing, stopping the dying, which is a very simple alert training. That has to happen on the front end, and that's one thing that did not happen at Robb Elementary. And so anything that distracts from that, that's you have to start with the alert, and everything else falls behind that.
Thank you. We have to lean on your expertise in these areas. So we have duplications. Who's doing the training? Anything else?
There's several things that we made several pages of suggested
Okay.
edits to tweak. You know, some of those are, you know, the sheriffs are elected by their constituents, and requiring them to go through PIO training and stuff like that. You know, we can all have our PIOs trained statewide, but if something significant happens, we're going to be standing there in support of our police chief, our local sheriff, 9 times out of 10. There's a couple of times that didn't happen, and happened to be they were both in mass casualty events, Sutherland Springs and Uvalde. But normally, in 254 counties, and probably in 250 of those, the sheriff or the police chief is going to be the PIO, the spokesperson, and we're going to be there in support of them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Members, any other questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Lopez.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here and providing your testimony and the work that you do out in the field. That's, without what you and your men and women are doing, our community would not be as safe as it is today. Can you just tell me a little bit about where in the timeline, from the time that an event happens, for example, let's use the Robb Elementary as an example. I mean, at some point, information is being, responses as quick as possible. Different criteria is being established. You know, how many are there, where are they, how many kids are involved, or how many people are involved. And at some point, there is a identification of what type of weapon is being used, right? Is it a small caliber pistol, or is it something much more damaging than that? Does that point in time, in that timeline, change the approach? And does this practice identify when that happens and what the appropriate response would be to any event? I mean, if you can kind of give me some ideas around that.
Well, several things. Yes, every situation is going to be different. As far as after the event and releasing the information, I was the regional director in charge of Sutherland Springs. It was completely different because the suspect was dead. The issue was, is there a continuing threat? Is there somebody that was working with him? So there was a sense of urgency to find out who this guy is, who he's linked to, social media, dump cell phones. We came together, DPS took the lead with the support of FBI, and within hours, we were set up on different residences in Texas. We had FBI running leads out of state, working with the military department, determine history, motive, all those things. Uvalde was a lot different. But are you talking about the response to the type of weapon that's being used in the crime itself?
Just generally, the idea is that there's a timeline, right? That starts from the moment the call happens, or maybe from the time that the first intrusion happens, all the way to the time that you feel that you have it under control. And there's a point in time in there where you have to identify, you know, the type of, assault you're under, right? And
Right.
Does that deviate the scheme? I mean, I'm assuming that there's a point in time when you have to bring in more, more firepower, if you will, or more advanced offensive support.
You know, it really doesn't. And there's so many different situations, but law enforcement, whether you're the first officer on the scene or the third officer, the training is the same. You got to run towards the gunfire.
Right.
You got to stop the killing, and you can't. No longer can you wait for a tactical team, with or without the equipment. That's what's required. That's what's expected, and we see that on a regular basis. It happens statewide. And there's, you hear about those. It doesn't make, big news. It's not national news because it happens every day in Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, where officers are running towards gunfire and they take out a suspect before he can shoot more people. It's different if you have somebody that's there early that puts out misinformation that leads to confusion. Officers, when we go through the training, it's very clear. And the more training, the better. And you learn and you learn and you learn. I think what leads to confusion sometimes is who shows up first on that scene. In Texas, our sheriffs are the high sheriffs. They're elected, and we're there to support them. Police chiefs have a lot of authority, and traditionally in Texas DPS, when you show up, you're in support of the locals. If you show up on the first scene, you're the incident commander. You're it. It doesn't matter if you're a trooper, a game warden, or a ISD officer, or whatever the case may be. But it's unusual that you show up and the elected sheriff or the local police chief of authority with jurisdiction is there. If that happens, we always defer to the highest ranking on the scene, the person with jurisdiction. It's, very confusing. It's very unusual for somebody to put out misinformation, such as the suspect is barricaded. If you hear somebody say a suspect is barricaded and people are standing around, it doesn't matter you went through all this training and you're a former Special Forces, Navy SEAL, whatever the case may be. If the people that are in the leadership is standing, not acting like it's an active shooter, and then you hear those kind of comments, it creates to the confusion. There's already going to be chaos.
Yeah.
Law enforcement in Texas, we're working with the mayor on this also. It's very, we're fortunate. We get a lot of training because there's so many hoax, bomb threats, and active shooter calls coming in. We had one last week right next to the DPS office here in Austin that caused a massive response. But it's good training, but we got to figure a way to put a stop to those and hold people accountable for calling in these hoax. It ties up law enforcement resources that we don't have. But to answer your question, there's every situation is different. Normally, what you see are street level police officers show up. They run towards the gunfire. It happens here in Austin on 6th Street on a regular occurrence. The officers put their lives in danger for people that they've never met and don't know every day. Uvalde was an anomaly. It's hard to go back and look at how it happened and why everything happened. But you can see the officers were asking, what are we doing? What are we doing? A lot of them had the alert training, but they were getting conflicting information. It didn't look like an active shooter. They weren't treating it like an active shooter. You had a sheriff, an acting chief, and the police chief of the ISD there on scene, and it resulted in this long delay that cannot happen. Shortly after that, the director of the Department of Public Safety, Steve McCraw, put out a memorandum to all DPS troopers that no longer are you allowed to assume that there's not children in a classroom. That if they're shooting inside a school, the assumption is that the classrooms are full of kids until we can prove otherwise.
Yeah, prove it different, yeah.
And so we changed our tactic, but the training, the alert protocols did not change. It's just that, Texas DPS, I know some of us have family members that are in the department, and we have strict protocols and strict rules and stuff like that. Well, part of that is law enforcement in Texas, we all work together. So we fill the gaps, whether it's a big county, a small county. There's not a county that's too big to receive assistance or give assistance, or a county that's too small to provide assistance. So we're there to fill the gap in these counties, whatever it may be, but we're always working in support of our police chiefs and sheriffs. And so if you go against the sheriff, normally you're admonished and you'll probably be kicked out of the county, especially if you're wrong and the sheriff is right. So very nuanced. A lot of things that contributed to Valley, I think a lot of them have been addressed by the legislature. We have better tools, we have better equipment, we have mandatory training. The training has improved, the training has expanded. It took us, I think we've trained over 10,000 in alert training, just the department, separate and aside from what alert is doing in San Marcos. So there's been a lot of improvements made, and I know the mayor has great intentions with this bill, and we want to work with him to help it make it better.
Great. Well, thank you for your comments, and Chairman, thank you for allowing me to ask those questions. I think they're important to know.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaughlin.
Colonel, I just want to say on behalf of my community, thank you. But DPS has been there for 3 years in Uvalde. We had 36 officers of DPS the first year. Those officers went to our campuses, interacted with these kids and we still have DPS officers there today. And for that, I thank you, and I appreciate what y'all did.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Members, any other questions? Colonel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do. All right. Chair calls Ian Maladina. I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation. Ian Maladina. All right. If they show up, we can come back to it. Chair calls Mark Escott. Mr. Escott, thank you for being here. We show you registered as Mark Escott, testifying on behalf of yourself and testifying for the bill,
It's be on behalf of the city of Austin.
on behalf of the
In
city of
support,
Austin.
yes, sir.
And for the bill. Okay, please proceed.
Chairman Hefner, committee members, I am Dr. Mark Escott, and I serve as the Chief Medical Officer for the city of Austin. And I'm here today to testify in support of House Bill 33, and I've submitted some backup materials. I'm an emergency medicine and EMS physician and currently oversee the EMS system for the city of Austin and for the Texas Department of Public Safety through an interlocal agreement. One of my duties with DPS is to also serve as a tactical physician with the Texas Rangers Special Operations Group. In that capacity, on May 24th, 2022, I was dispatched to respond to Uvalde, Texas for an active shooter incident. My colleague, Dr. Heidi Abraham, and I responded, arrived on scene at about 2 p.m., and worked to identify if there were any ongoing needs for our assistance. In June 2022, I was tasked by Director McCraw to complete a casualty analysis to determine if any of the deaths were potentially preventable. I reviewed the extensive material provided to me by the Texas Rangers and then convened an expert panel of physicians to prepare for the review of the autopsies, first responder reports, and medical records of the deceased victims. Unfortunately, after a year of waiting for the materials, they were not released. And the analysis process was ended by the district attorney on August 18th of 23. One of my major routine responsibilities is the investigation of clinical errors and near misses. And this involves a detailed analysis of events to identify a root cause and determine if the error involved a system error, a cognitive error, or both. This involves not only identifying the errors that occurred, but perhaps more importantly, discovering why they occurred. There has been extensive research on cognitive errors in decision-making, which is a routine component in analyses of critical incidents in other disciplines, like aviation, nuclear power, and manufacturing of chemicals, where errors lead to large-scale losses of life. It has also been indoctrinated into the medical field due to the estimation that medical errors lead to hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths a year in the United States. The challenge is that research and education related to cognitive errors in public safety has not been meaningfully addressed. Catastrophic mistakes involve diagnostic errors that often do not become apparent until it's tragically too late. Availability bias, anchoring bias, confirmation bias are among the factors routinely found as causes of errors in medicine and other disciplines, and undoubtedly are factors in public safety errors. In medicine, we research cognitive errors, we educate our clinicians about them, and we've developed techniques to avoid them, but we have not seen the same level of effort in public safety. I want to thank Representative McLaughlin for introducing this impactful bill, and I urge this committee to make a more profound and enduring impact by investing the resources needed to research, educate, and improve the decision-making in our public safety disciplines. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Members, are there any questions for this witness? Representative McLaughlin?
Doctor, meeting with you the other day, you showed your diagram, which this diagram is here. And can you explain that again? You do it better than I will.
Yes, sir, and this is really, page 3 really outlines how these events usually happen. It doesn't matter if it's medicine, it doesn't matter if it's another industry. But what we do as humans is we experience an incident, and then we go through a process of pattern matching. Does this fit with something that I know? Does it fit with a prototype that I recognize? If it does, then we start going down that path. Intuitively, we think, as we gather additional information, that what's going on might be something different than my initial impression. We think that we're going to gradually move in that direction of what is actually going on. But that's not at all what happens. What happens is we stay on the path of our initial impression until what we call a catastrophic moment, where there is overwhelming evidence that you are wrong, and you suddenly switch. That is one of the issues that we see routinely in medicine. It's one that was likely at play in this incident.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, I think you provided information from my previous question because I guess that's what I was trying to drive at. I mean, as this timeline progresses in any incident, there are things that we make decisions on. As you explained, some goes back on just personal experiences. The other one goes on, well, how was I trained to react to this? And I have to be prepared to change along the way before it becomes a wrong decision and a catastrophic moment. So, I mean, how do you build that in relatively short order? I think it was, the testimony was that, you know, the first person on the scene is the one that's going to respond. He goes in, as they say, guns blazing, or certainly the effort blazing, right forward to be able to stop the perpetrator. How does the assessment of that individual within this training, how does the assessment of that individual then transfer to the next person that shows up on scene that really has now a command responsibility, and then the next person that comes up? I mean, the transitioning of what has been learned in the first, second, and third steps is vitally important, so we don't go down this path to get to a catastrophic moment. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that and
Sure.
make us all feel like we're heading the right? I think we are.
Sure. And again, there are so many commonalities with medicine and other areas of work. You know, the issue that Colonel Martin described, and I'm sure you'll hear from others, is that, you know, if you are the first person on a scene, you have a dual role. You have to address the issue, and you have to do a scene size up, sort out what you need, and you have to do both things at the same time. When additional resources arrive, then you have to do one of two things. You have to remove yourself from the heads down position. I'm focused on one thing, so that you can transition to a heads up position. You can take in additional information, analyze it, troubleshoot, and ensure also that the other people on the scene know what's going on, a shared situational awareness. That was obviously an issue here. It's an issue in a lot of these scenes. This is not an issue unique to this incident or to law enforcement or public safety. If you look at my slide 6 in there, this was a recurrent issue in the aviation industry. Review after review after review of airplane crashes. Well, they know what happened, the airplane crashed. But the why it happened was interesting. What they found in the cockpit voice recorders is that a subordinate who was not the captain detected an issue. There's a famous one that involved the plane going into the Potomac, where the co-pilot identified there was icing on the wings, and 3 different times said something to the captain to indicate that he was concerned about the ice on the wings. But what happened was mitigated speech because of the deference to authority. So the co-pilot never said, "There's ice on the wings, we have to remove the ice before we take off." So the airline industry, after seeing this over and over and over again, instituted a policy, which is escalating challenges. It starts with, I'm concerned about. Next step is, I'm uncomfortable with. Third step is, I believe this situation is unsafe. And if there is not adequate response, they are mandated to take control of that airplane. If we had a policy like this on May 24th, we might have a different situation. These are the kind of things, the human factors pieces, the cognitive science pieces, that we have to start sorting out in public safety. This is a largely unknown concept in the public safety space. And we need to change that, or we're going to see the same issues over and over and over again, which we've seen. You name a mass shooting, there are themes associated with the why the errors happened that have never been addressed.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Members, any other questions? All right, Mark, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Chair calls Sheriff Brian Hawthorne. Good afternoon, Sheriff. We show you registered as Brian Hawthorne, testifying on behalf of the Sheriff's Association of Texas and yourself, and you are neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead.
Chairman, Vice Chair, Representative McLaughlin, thank you for the opportunity to go before you, and I especially want to thank Representative McLaughlin for giving us an opportunity to spend a little time in front of him a couple of days ago. discussing the bill, and we're here to try and support everything he's doing with the bill, and make it the best bill that we can come up with. I think it's important right up front. I need to say that I testified in the Senate hearing on Uvalde and also in the House hearing, and then also last session. I think we can all agree it was absolute catastrophic leadership. All right, it was a failure of leadership. And what I'm not sure is whether we can legislate leadership. All right, and that's the issue that I think we have to make sure that we identify. Because exactly why we're here, I'm not sure. I understand it's all about the children. House Bill 3 last session that was filed by Speaker of the House Dustin Burrows. The sheriffs had a lot of input in it. We got involved in it. And we still have not even completed the training that established, working out the sheriff's meetings with the schools and the police chiefs and the fire departments. So we're kind of putting things on top of each other when we haven't finished what we started with HB3. Obviously, improvement, we should always be here to improve. And so obviously if we can continue to improve and work off of HB3, we need to. There are some concerns from the Sheriff's Association that we very specifically put a cap at 350,000 population counties on the sheriff's meetings because we just could not figure out how to actually put together that meeting. And even those counties that are 250,000 plus struggle right now trying to operate and perform those meetings. A smaller county like myself, where I sit with approximately 60,000, 55, 60,000, it's very easy for me to bring my school superintendents in, my chiefs, my fire chiefs. I even bring in my emergency management directors and try and discuss how we're going to handle a protocol issue. We discuss tabletop events, both live and actual, and also just a paperwork table event. I think a lot of the things that are in the bill are taking place now that we haven't given it time to see where it's going to go. Active shooter training, I will tell you, I don't think there's a police officer one in the state of Texas that doesn't believe that alert isn't spot on. It's extremely accurate, and alert just isn't one or two courses. I think it's important for everybody to know that there is a multitude of courses that alert holds. I recently, along with just about every sheriff in the state, and Sheriff's Association worked with the Police Chiefs Association to travel around to do the management part of alert, to discuss setting up command posts, how to handle media, and how to do all of those things that are putting into the bill. But I just I don't want anybody to think that we're all standing around not doing these things, because these things are in play right now. And on the PIO side, I think it's real important for everybody to recognize, as you all are elected by your constituents, sheriffs are also. And I would venture to say that most police chiefs on this type of a catastrophic event, whether it's of a smaller or larger nature, the police chief's can probably do a lot of the PIO himself, and I can assure you every sheriff I know will want to do the PIO side of it. And so even in our new sheriff school, our leadership academy that we do for new sheriffs, we have a segment for PIO. And I've just got to be careful representing the Sheriff's Association that I'm not making a sheriff go to a PIO school every 6 months. So if you take somebody like myself that's now in my 13th year as a sheriff, I don't know what you're going to teach me on my 26th PIO school. So I hope that we can just kind of look at some of those issues and work through them. Annual and biannual events, they sound wonderful. But I got to tell you, it takes weeks for us to plan a tabletop event. And it especially takes weeks for us to plan an event where we are utilizing children and staging injuries and doing mass casualty evacuation. It takes weeks. So when I look at trying to put everything together in this bill, and I'm just trying to focus on my sheriff's office with my 4 school districts, could be very labor intensive. And we just have to remember some of these sheriffs that I'm up here representing today only have a handful of deputies. We're not a Houston Police Department. We're not a Department of Public Safety. We don't have the personnel that we can just give up to do these mass casualty events. I still have murders and rapes and child abuse and all these other cases that I got to make sure continue to keep working. I just can't drop what we're doing to work on a tabletop event. I don't think there's a sheriff one that won't welcome the assistance of TDM to help them organize things, but I think there's a real fine line there. We just need to make sure that, because I've had the pleasure of working with TDM a lot because I'm a coastal county. Just about every sheriff that's a coastal county finds themselves working with TDM just due to hurricanes and floods and what have you. And there's not a more professional group that I don't like sitting back and working with and having conversations and learning from, because there's a lot that can be learned from them. But I think everybody needs to realize the role that the sheriff has and that a police chief has, and we don't have that ability to drop what we do to spend weeks preparing for this catastrophic event. We have to figure out how to prepare for this catastrophic event in small increments of training. And ALERT allows us to do that, so I hope we can continue to work through it. I especially want to make sure that I'm here representing the 90 sheriffs that have a population in their county of less than 10,000. And if they have a population of less than 10,000, they don't have a lot of deputies, they don't have a lot of personnel that they can give up to send to training. And that's the biggest concern I have here representing the Sheriff's Association.
All right, members, Representative Louderback.
Sheriff, I appreciate what you do. I think the main goal here for Representative McLaughlin is to, and he may have noticed some things that are bothersome to him on the communication and the challenges that law enforcement has on multiple agency communications. So I think the bill is an effort to, and he can certainly comment on this, but the main goal of this is to continue to evolve, continue to work on. I think this committee is probably well versed in the challenges that we have on training, the personnel issues, the systemic loss of personnel that we have to deal with on a regular basis every day. So all those things combined, I think the real goal here is just to maintain it. He may have observed some things that are a little bothersome on the different attitudes about maybe the school district police with the PD there and the SO there, and in agencies across our state. We've had little issues like this before, and I'm sure you'll agree with me about that.
Absolutely.
And they're just challenges, and we've got to overcome them. Got to overcome them for the state of Texas and our citizens. And so this bill is really a combination bill to try and keep that going and facilitate that conversation over and over. I think that's what it is. Appreciate what you do, and thanks for being here.
No, thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Yeah, Sheriff, I mean, I would agree with what Sheriff Louderback said there. The whole deal of this is to open up the lines of communication, because that was the failure that day. I mean, and what I want to see is these officers and these agencies talking with each other and working together, not against each other. More of a we instead of a me attitude. And I mean, that's coming forward as you speak. I mean, most of the training that would be required in this bill, y'all are already doing. We realize that. It's just make sure that everybody's on the same page and you're communicating. That's all our intent is here.
Well, I would tell you this, Representative, I obviously your heart is in it and it's in the right place. I know that the police chiefs and the sheriffs would love to really get into some dialogue with you. We feel like we can really help you, because there are a few things that I have identified myself as we put our sheriffs meetings together. But I just don't want anybody to think that things aren't in the working. I mean, and we haven't even gotten through the training cycles that are required for ALERT yet. So from a Sheriff's Association perspective, we're neutral on the bill, and we would like to continue to work with the author to make the bill easy and adjustable for everybody.
Sure, and we're open to work with you.
Sheriff, there could be an opportunity. I just completed my active shooter training alert, and so very good training. But it may be a good opportunity for July for Representative McLaughlin to have a little class at the sheriff's conference. That would be a good thing for him, maybe to consider, and continue to work on the challenge that we all face.
Absolutely. In fact, obviously, Sheriff Louderback knows, and I know the chairman knows, I'm retired from the Department of Public Safety, and I've been the sheriff for 13 years now. And some of the best training that I have been to in my 41-year career was the alert leadership management training that I went through that Chief Stan Stanridge taught. It was probably some of the best training I've ever had. So alert's getting it done. The police chiefs are getting it done. The sheriffs are getting it done. And if we can do things to make it easier and more refined, we're very open to that.
All right. Sheriff, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Chair calls Greg Stevens. We show you registered as Greg Stevens, testifying on behalf of the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and you're neutral on the bill.
Yes, sir.
All right, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Representative McLaughlin, appreciate y'all having me today, members. I'm Executive Director with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and as all of you guys are aware, we're responsible for ensuring that all Texas law enforcement agencies across the state meet a minimum standards, and that every Texas peace officer, whether they're full-time, part-time, reserve, that they meet minimum training standards. And so with that, we look forward to working with Representative McLaughlin and all of the stakeholder groups that you've already heard from and several others out there, working with them on recommendations for law enforcement agency policies and training standards. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that I might be able to.
Members, any questions? Representative Louderback.
Commissioner, appreciate what you do, and you play a huge role in the certification of all Texas peace officers, or all certified Texas peace officer, and you're also responsible for all the training that's required. So maybe if you touch a little bit upon, for the committee, the extensive challenges to our law enforcement community, exactly what a training cycle looks like, based upon a little bit about their personnel and the problems we're having with personnel, and some of the challenges that make it really difficult. And as we struggle year in and year out to get people to those classes and still maintain exactly what we're supposed to be doing in our law enforcement role. If you touch on that just a little bit.
You bet, Sheriff. So as the baseline standard, every law enforcement officer across the state must get 40 hours of in-service or continuing education every 2 years. After the last session in Senate Bill 1852, I believe it was, that added on, and it comes on the heels of Uvalde, that every Texas peace officer must now get also 16 hours of active shooter, or really active attack training, because these incidents can often be something besides a firearm. It could be an attack with any other kind of weapon. So 16 hours of active shooter training through alert. And in addition to that, I think something that was realized is that we have a lot of peace officers that actually hadn't been through or didn't have correctly recorded the alert level 1 training. So working with Senator Flores, we wanted to make sure that by the end of the 2-year cycle that ends August 31st of 2027, that every Texas peace officer throughout the state, again, whether you're a state trooper, a game warden, a city police officer, a sheriff's deputy, fire marshal, doesn't matter. If you hold a Texas peace officer license, you must have had alert level 1 training, which is the foundational training, by August 31st of 2027. And so we engaged with DPS, we engaged with alert to make sure, because that's a heavy lift. You're talking to 80,000 peace officers that we have to get through. One, there's 16 hours every 2 years, but also there's tens of thousands of officers that haven't had recorded that alert level 1 training. And so to Sheriff Hawthorne's point, That's a big lift on the smaller agencies because it requires travel for what is a 2-day class. That alert level 1 is a 16-hour class. And we've made great progress in that. We'll meet that deadline, and I think we'll get it a lot sooner than August 31st of 2027. I don't have those numbers for you, but I can certainly get where we are. If you're interested in that, I can get that for you. So that's one of the big things that we're working on. And to your point also, Sheriff, I don't know you're going to have too many agencies come up here and tell you that, hey, we're fully staffed. We're good. We're not even doing any recruiting right now. That's rare. Every agency across the state they're hurting for people. For whatever reason, it's different than when I started in the early 90s, where if you didn't make a 90% on the entrance exam, you didn't stand a chance. 400 plus people showed up in Lubbock, Texas for 10 positions. And that's completely flipped now, where you have a couple of hundred show up for 30, 40 vacancies in an agency the size of Lubbock. And so everyone's struggling to get people on the street, even small agencies. And so to the sheriff's point, it's very difficult when you have to do 2-day trainings or 3-day trainings. But we all know how important that is, especially when it comes to this type of stuff. And another, I think, to the sheriff's point and what Colonel Martin had talked about, and what I'm going to use doctor, I'm not sure if that's correct, the one gentleman that testified, the criticality of that training is that one decision that's got to be made: have I come up on a situation that is stabilized, it is a barricaded gunman, or it is a hostage situation, or is it not stabilized and it is an active shooting situation? It's still active. There are still people dying. It is an active shooter situation, and that's the criticality. And the alert training really focuses hard on that, and they're doing a great job of making sure that every peace officer in the state, as best they can make that decision to respond correctly. And as Colonel Martin said, is stop the dying, stop the killing and then stop the dying. And that's the crux of the alert training. And they're doing a great job of that. And I think a lot of what I've seen in this bill, and again, we're standing by to work with you, Representative, and to work with all these stakeholders to make this bill good and to make it work well. Once that situation has stabilized and we're looking at the aftermath of it. But in the immediacy, I think Alert is doing a great job. DPS has partnered with them, agencies across the state, to train every peace officer, no matter what, whether you're a school district officer, whether you are a game warden, whatever you are, so that you, if you're the first, second, or third person on the scene, can make that decision and determine, do I need to keep going because this is an active situation, people are dying, and I've got to stop the dying. I've got to stop the killing and then stop the dying. Yes, sir.
Agreed. Thank you, sir.
All right, members, any other questions for this witness? All right, Mr. Stevens, thank you for being here.
I appreciate all y'all are doing. Thank you.
That's all. Chair calls Chief Nim Kidd. We have him here as a resource witness. Same thing. We have it registered as Nim Kidd testifying on behalf of TDM, testifying neutral as a resource witness. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Members, any questions for Chief Kidd? Just had you here as an in case, I guess, so.
As an in case.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Representative Hicklin.
So we've heard a little bit about some of the interagency communication issues. Could you possibly speak to areas that are included in this bill that TDM could offer assistance in bringing about clear collaboration in order to solve this issue?
Yes, ma'am, I think I can. So thanks for the opportunity. Again, my name is Nim Kidd, Chief of the Division of Emergency Management and Chair of the Governor's Emergency Management Council, of which 39 state agencies are a part of. Our job at the Division of Emergency Management is to support our local government partners, our mayors and county judges and sheriffs, and bring together a collaborative team, not necessarily in the discipline of law enforcement, or firefighting or emergency medicine, but the goal to bring all of the local and state partners together to support and respond to a problem. And I've been standing in the back listening to the testimony. I don't disagree with any of it. I think law enforcement has taken tremendous steps as a community, and I spent 8 years in the Department of Public Safety as an assistant director there, and then 17 years before that with the San Antonio Fire Department. So I've got to see how we should all respond together. Law enforcement clearly has the lead role in responding to an active killing. Fire and EMS have supporting roles in responding to active killing. We do National Incident Management System training, as outlined by this legislative body, as our job and responsibility to do for state agencies and local governments. The law says today our job is to do after-action reports on major incidents and bring that information together, not because we're in charge, not because we have any specific specialty in any of the disciplines, but because we are aggregators and collaborators and working together. As some of the stuff that I've read in the original version, we do have today existing structures that allow any first responder to go and sign up for existing training and catalog and capture that training. But that should not compete with what TCOL does for law enforcement, nor what the Commission on Fire Protection does for firefighters, or the Department of State Health Services does for the emergency medical technicians. I do think one of the challenges is today you have 3 different governmental entities certifying 3 different disciplines that are going to the same disaster, going to the same scene. And I've been in this business 32 years. I think the first time I learned what the police officers and the EMTs were supposed to do on scene was when I showed up on my first scene. Nothing in my initial training as a firefighter told me what I was supposed to expect from law enforcement. I would probably bet nothing in your initial law enforcement training told you what you were supposed to expect from fire and EMS. You learned it the first time you got on scene. And so I think what the representative is trying to do is to bring those organizations together before, during, and after the event to provide a safer response for Texans.
Thank you, Chief. Members, any other?
Thanks, Chief.
Representative
Appreciate what you
Rattleback.
do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Chief, thank you for, you good? Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Thanks for being here. That's all the witnesses we have registered. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 33? If not, the chair recognizes Representative McLaughlin to close on the bill.
Thank you. Members, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go off course a little bit here. Again, this bill is not to point fingers at anybody or anything. It's just to get the lines of communication open, because I can tell you as the mayor of Uvalde, a year and a half after this deal, we had a meeting for law enforcement to meet. We had law enforcement agencies that didn't show up. Not pointing the finger or anything, but how can we communicate and work together on something that may happen at one of our schools, or be it a department store or wherever, if we're not all on the same page? So I'm deviating from my closing a little bit there, but that's my intent here. Even the Sheriff Association says in their letter they sent to the deal, additional training-related legislation they're in favor of: curriculum, mandatory hours, and joint response training. That's their own letter that they said, and that's what I'm trying to do to make sure they're all on the same page. But I can tell you on that day, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. They didn't. There was just no communication. And that's the biggest thing of this. If they're working together and they're meeting together, the meetings that they're required, 2 meetings are already required each year under House Bill 3. Sheriffs have to have 2 meetings together. So 3 of the meetings in here are already covered under that meeting. The third meeting would be where they go out and do a joint training. And maybe it's a tabletop, maybe it's out in the field or whatever, but it's just so they're all on the same page and know how each other are going to act. That way, when they put up that scene, if that person is not responding the way he should, then the next agency that's there says, look, I'm taking charge. I'm taking over. And that's what we didn't see that day, and that's what I'm trying to bring forward if they work together. But now I'll read my closing now that I've got off my soapbox. So, Chairman Heffernan, members of the committee, passing H. Bill 33 will ensure that law enforcement is prepared, our schools are protected, and failures like those we saw at Robb Elementary never happen again. No more excuses, no more passing the buck, no more officers standing around waiting for orders while kids are bleeding in a classroom. HB 33 sets the standard, actual, hands-on, multi-agency drills where police, first responders, and school officials train together. Because when the worst happens, they need to know how to act as one. Twice a year, law enforcement and school leaders will sit in the same room and get on the same page. No silos, no finger pointing, just a plan, just accountability, just results. Because we need when the call comes in, when every second means life or death, we need officers and agencies that don't freeze, don't hesitate, and sure as hell don't fail. The hesitation and uvality costs lives. If these policies had been in place 3 years ago, maybe, just maybe, those kids would be alive today. We don't know that, but we can't fix the past, but we sure can fix the future. Passing HB 33 isn't just the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do. Let's get it done. So I respectfully ask this bill reported favorably out of committee. And I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Members, any questions? Representative Lauterbach.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin, for bringing this bill here. And, I think the law enforcement community understands, and I think they accept the challenges that we faced for some time. And bringing it out and forcing everyone to the table on a timely basis, on a regular continuation, is actually part of the goal. So I appreciate the bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative, thank you. Congratulations on your first bill. Usually it's one not quite so heavy. It's kind of a heavy issue, but you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
All right, if there's no objection, this bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? Okay, the chair hears none. The bill is left pending.